So we're back at the machine. We've got the valve we just rebuilt, and we're going to put it in place. I've got one mounting hole here. I feel like there should be a second one. I don't know what it mounts to. I'll have to go look at my footage to double check it, but we can get just about everything done. So this bolt goes through there. This points down, aims through a hole in the housing. So let's get the nut on here, the washer and the nut. And there's a little bit left on electrical. There's a front axle, and that's kind of the stuff that's maybe happening today. We'll see how far everything goes and how much can go wrong. My project's usually a lot goes. This one goes around to the pump. This one curves through here. Goes like that. And we're going to leave this one sort of loose. I'm going to thread it on. Just because I don't have the pump in there yet. This guy, this goes to the top of the valve. So, snake her in there, round everything else. Go. Get both these started, and this should locate where the valve has to lock down. Can't say I've ever had a skidder that didn't have a lot of leaks up in the front here. This one used to sort of pour out on your shoe if you weren't careful. This guy, I'll wait till I have a hose on it because that may need to angle just a little bit one way or the other. There we go. Not really going anywhere, and this is one of those levers that really shouldn't use much at all, because I can dump more flow into the cooler, or I can put more flow into the hydraulic system. I guess I just got to watch the temp gauge and mess with that. We're going to take this out. This, I think, was an old ether start. There's nothing on the end of it, and this front end comes out to nothing. So we'll get that out of there. And the old Myco brake lock. Well, I don't have the old Myco brake. I might add one in. But then we got our oil pressure. That one, actually, I did hook up already. So that one's good. The tack, I haven't found a new solution for the tack. It's broken and it's mechanical. I don't have any way to hook it up to this engine. This is the new shutoff, so that is actually hooked up and good to go. Amperes, I have not wired that in yet, but I'll probably hook that up. Transmission temperature, that is hooked up to the Allison. This one is a engine temperature, and I think I'm gonna put a new one in. The sensor looks like it's probably okay, but it's in rough shape, and I have a new one. And then I think this one I'm supposed to be my transmission pressure, which I cleaned the gauge out. I just got to put that in. And then, yeah, there's a starter and the lights. I was going to put a key switch here, and I have one. I need to drill this hole a little bit bigger for a modern switch. That was just a button. But I was setting it up with a switch because I have one, and I think doing that I'll be able to have all the lights hooked up on the auxiliary, so if I take the key out, I can't leave the lights on, or more likely have kids come by the landing and turn my lights on playing around and kill my batteries. I am going to bury a shutoff for the electric kind of where you can't see it in here, to sort of safeguard some of that, but yeah, I'll bring it back when we're up to the next step. Like, subscribe, comment, let me know if you have any thoughts or ideas or experience with these, and hope you're having a good time watching. There we go. Perfect. I have to clean up the burr on the back to really get it in there, right? But it'll go like that, and then we got the key. We got our temp gauge in. We got to route that up to the front of the motor. I did take the top coolant tube off because I took out the old sensor for temp right here. And I tried to put the new mechanical gauge in. It's not deep enough for it, so I plugged that one. I figured don't put the sensor back in, it's not getting used. And then we looked at a few other options. So there is this port right here in the back of the motor. We looked at that one. That was a possibility. But I found one that I think is a little bit better. It's a little bit dim in the front of the shop. I stuck it in up here behind the fuel filter. It's a little bit higher in the motor. I'd rather have it on the front, but I think that'll still be a good temp reading. It's up high in the head. That should be good. And we went back here, and that's all set up. So we got our temp gauge in. We know our temp gauge for the transmission was already hooked up. I now got the key in, re-drilled that hole. I got a little footage. We'll see if that's any good. And mounted that. And then I started hooking up the ammeter. I need to bring some bigger wire down. So I've got from the alternator coming in here. And then I've got one line from here going down to our key switch. So that'll be good. And then I need to get a nice thick one going from here back down to our starter. And I didn't have, the one I had run before, wasn't really thinking, it's a little small. I need to run something bigger. I'm gonna bring back maybe some 8 gauge, maybe 10, we'll see what I got. 8 would be nice, 10 would work. We'll bring that back down to the starter. And then on the wiring front, as you can see, it's all sort of loomed together. I got the air filter. This is out of the bus. And we're lining it up, and this actually fits the brackets from the Timberjack, which is nice, and that'll sit about here. And then we'll section this and point it straight up. I need to see what I can find for a top hat. I'm thinking one sort of like what's on that truck over there. And in here, it's a little dark, I put the battery disconnect, so that's tucked away nicely. So from in the cab, I'll be able to stick my hand down through here and flip the switch on and off. Just a little backup to make sure no one messes with my machine. I like hiding those switches if possible. It's also covered, which should keep it in better shape. These switches do tend to fail, and it'll keep the wires a little nicer. So that's cleaned up there. Oh, we started getting some wires in the batteries. I think I've got some red terminal wire to run back to the starter. But I think all I need is this wire to the starter, and then from the starter coming back to the ammeter. That should be good for that. And then we'll run some headlights. I'm not going to worry about wiring the roll cage lights. I'd want lights sticking out of that right now, but I will wire up the ones in the grill just while I'm in here. So we're pretty close to putting the axle on. But yeah, our fuel system's hooked up. Our electrical is 2 wires from being complete. Our air doesn't have a filter yet, but from the turbo up is good. The brakes, I did get these bled. I had to change a bunch of fittings here because they were all a disaster and cracked. So, and they were leaking. So I got fresh end on this line, and then I did some adapting, got this teed in. I need to get just a pipe cap. I don't have an 1/8 inch one sitting here. But yeah, it's coming together. I have an hour meter. I think I'm gonna probably hole saw another gauge hole in here. We'll probably use a regular light switch, but I'll hook the lights up to relay. That way it won't fry my switch, and I'll put some LEDs in the roll cage. Probably a couple facing back, couple facing forward, and maybe something out the sides. Depends whether I have spots or floods. I'll just feel it out, but that's down the road. I do need to make some bumpers. If anybody knows where I can get bumpers for this, or what the heck they were probably like, you know, a boat dock bumper or something generic, knowing Timberjack. But you can see they're making marks. Looks almost like a unhappy smiley face. But if anybody knows where you get the real stuff, leave me a comment or send me a message. I'd love to hear. Yeah, hopefully we'll be skidding logs this soon and we'll get a whole bunch of footage when we finally do. But once it's running, then we will be able to test the winch and see if there's any piece of this machine that's not completely smoked. I'm hoping the winch is okay. With my luck, it'll need a rebuild. It should be a nice machine. We're gonna fabricate some hood panels. I've got the center. Probably have to modify that a little to go over the air pipe. But I don't have corners, I don't have the side guards, I don't have these side panels. If anybody has stuff, leave me a comment, subscribe, like it, all that stuff. But yeah, if you know where there are some, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just gonna make some. But yeah, keep on chugging with the project and let me know what you think. I probably bit off something that should have gone in the scrapyard, but I hate seeing these machines go there. I like them. I'm working on this one. We're going to get it going. Follow along, subscribe, like it, see what we're up to.